Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, we're going to talk about a few things. Mason Mount signed, done for Manchester United, deal agreed and reached with Chelsea, how that happened, and if it was a good deal for United. We'll talk about the goalkeeper situation, talk about some stuff on striker, and talk about a few different things. It's confusing. Times are a little confusing, very confusing, and I want to explain it here. So let's get right into it and talk about it. There's some stuff coming out right now, and this is exactly what I wanted to speak about with regards to the goalkeeper thing. So I'll get to that in a moment. Things are coming out kind of as I'm recording this, but I don't have time to stop and do this afterwards, so I'm just gonna have to kind of get through this. Let me just send this message and see if I'll get an answer by the time I get to goalkeeper. And live figuring this stuff out while doing this. Hold on. All right. So let's talk about Mason Mount. And first and foremost, Mason Mount agreed, deal done, 55 million plus 5 million in add-ons. United's target from the start on this deal was to value him at around 55 million pounds, and that is the deal where they ended up. About 2 weeks ago, I'd heard that was what they were lining up. Where they thought they would reach agreement was around the 55 million pound mark. The extra 5 million in add-ons, as I hear it, are literally for multiple trophies, big trophies, major trophies over multiple seasons. If it happens, it's worth it. It's that kind of thing. Like with Bruno Fernandes, we paid a fee with a lot of add-ons. We've paid quite a few of those because he's been really good. But there's other ones we won't pay unless we start winning Premier League trophies and such under him, and so or with him, and so it would be worth it paying the extra 5-10 million. We start winning the Premier League, winning the Champions League, things like that. Good deal. A player that Erik ten Hag had at the top of his list around February, March. It really seemed to come to the forefront when, interestingly enough, Fred was out. It was in the team with Eriksen out from injury. I think he's really started to look at shifting back to that 2-8s, which is what we played in preseason last year, and go towards a lot of a high pressure kind of midfield. And, and so it seems like that is the route that Ten Hag is going and taking. Casemiro, Mount, Bruno, we'd expect to be the midfield moving forward. Good signing. McAllister was also top of the list there as far as I understand it, but Mason Mount was there. And so the reason why Mount done first is a couple of reasons. One, Chelsea had this selling deadline, June 30th. They needed to get this deal agreed so they could, account for it. And he was the player top of the list that they could get. They cannot get their top of the list signings at striker. They cannot get, and we'll talk about that, they cannot get top of the list in some other areas. So high priority signing, player Ten Hag wants that will go into the starting 11. A very, very good signing, and a player who really wanted to come to United. It's good. It's good. I think they've done really well on this, frankly. To get it done, he'll be in for preseason. A starting 11 player in for preseason is a good thing. That midfield is important. Now, that's not the only important thing, but where things are a little bit confusing here is whether or not there's more spending available. And it kind of depends on who you ask or, where you go for answers at this point in time. There's some hints of information that United perhaps cannot move forward with spending more money at the moment, that they're waiting on approvals and things. As I hear it, it is not clear. It is not clear that United are going to be able to go ahead and spend more. At least it wasn't. Doesn't mean they can get answers at any point in time. They could get answers at any point in time if they can continue to spend elsewhere and move forward with it. and move forward with other deals. But it is not, as I understand it, certain that that is the case. As I was talking about in the last video, there's a lot of confusion over whether or not, and a lot of disagreement when it comes to the Glazers, when it comes to spending, when it comes to a lot of things. And so it doesn't mean United, Murtaugh, Ten Hag aren't going to be talking with people and moving forward with deals. But when it comes to crunch time, if it suddenly stalls again, and we'll talk about it with the goalkeeper, then you know what the reason is. And let's go on to the goalkeeper, because I think this will give a good explanation, a good demonstration of exactly what I'm trying to say here, because it's a little confusing and I'm not sure I'm expressing myself the best way possible. On the goalkeeper front, wants to bring Andre Onana in. Obviously, talks are there. United are getting the full framework of the deal in place. As you know, and then you have DiMarcio and others saying that they're expecting an offer to come in tonight. Well, United know the terms of the deal. They know what they need to do. They know what they could do on it. Let's see if that offer comes in, because at the same time, right at this point in time, it's been somewhat indicated to me by a few people, but also stories are starting to come out from United journalists, United side journalists, because today is David De Gea's final day under contract. So there has to be something. And stories are starting to come out from United side journalists that they're set to have some more face-to-face talks after the weekend. David De Gea is getting married. Congratulations to him. And Tom Heaton is our number one goalkeeper. Dean Henderson's back, rehabbing and all of that. But it's confusing, because you got this from a few different people now. They're set to continue talks with David De Gea face-to-face after the weekend, but it's kind of indicated like that's because in case they cannot sign a new number one, they don't want to burn that bridge. And the way you can read into that, if you want, which is what I kind of how I've been looking at it and what I've been getting hints of, is they don't know if they're going to get the money to make this offer for Andre Onana. They don't know if they're going to get the money, okay? They don't know if they'll have the money. They don't know if it will be approved. They cannot go into next season with Tom Heaton as the number one goalkeeper. Dean Henderson doesn't want to stay and isn't healthy yet. There's no way they can rely on that, because he may just completely request to leave. They don't know if they'll have the money for the goalkeeper, and that could change in an instant. And that's essentially the point. It's coming to a head. And today, David De Gea is released. So you could see that United are probably sitting there saying, Joel, we have no goalkeeper tomorrow. Do we have the money? Do we have the money? Can we make this offer? Do we have the money? Can we go ahead? And it's urgent, and it's urgent. We need an answer now, and they're probably expecting to get one now. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Maybe it'll be a yes, maybe it'll be a no. We don't know, unfortunately. That's the problem. That's the situation. And that is why, likely, as far as my best understanding of the situation is, that is likely why, there's nothing guaranteed, okay? That is likely why. It's come out from all these journalists now at the same time, and so I'm fairly positive that this is the exact situation. United are keeping it kind of on the hook just in case this money doesn't get approved by the Glazer family. And that is what is going on. That is exactly what is going on. That probably gives you the that probably gives you the bit of the indication of what's happening here. Okay, so I think I've explained it well. I'm glad this news has come out, because it essentially is confirming exactly my concerns and what I've been worried about. They don't know if they're going to have the money for the goalkeeper, and so they need to continue talking to De Gea next week if they're not going to get it, because they cannot go into next season with Tommy Heaton as the goalkeeper. And it's concerning and it's worrisome, but that's what it is. So Yeah. And in terms of striker, which is obviously another position that they need and another position they have to spend money on, and another position that they're worried what's going to happen, I do have some updates here, at least on the football side of it. But again, take this the same way as the goalkeeper. They don't know how much money they have. They don't know exactly what's going to happen or how it's going to work. So we just have to look at this from the perspective of a footballing perspective and hope that the money ends up being there for a striker. I worry that it's going to be choosing one or the other. Man, I'm worried about that. I really am. I am worried about that at this point in time because clearly things are not in a situation where United can just throw money forward until they are, right? Like as of right this moment, they would not be continuing talks with David De Gea if they could get this deal if they were certain of a deal with Andre Onana, and the deal's pretty much there to be made. So that kind of tells you what you need to know. So as of right now, there's no certainty of spending. So on the striker front, we've talked through all the targets between Kane and Osimhen and all of that, right? As we know, Kane is extremely unlikely, but they don't want to rule it out in case it can come back later in the summer and they have more budget. And I almost feel like they could put striker last in case they can come back to it with more budget later. Like get Onana in with Mount with anything you possibly can, sell Henderson, just get it done. And hopefully by late July, you've got an ability to spend more money with the takeover being resolved. Hopefully, right? Even if the, well, I don't want to say this, but I'm just saying, even if the Glazers stayed and there was no takeover, they could spend on this credit line then and bring in, a striker. But Kane, as we know, is extremely unlikely. Osimhen, as I understand, was been top high up the list, but the cost is astronomical. In the 180 to 200 million range. The Napoli president. This is kind of what's continued happening, and what my concerns were. Overall. So yeah, there's that, and then as I understand it, there's the other names like Vlahovic that won't happen, that are likely to go elsewhere. And then there's a couple of names to still keep an eye on that I've been told to keep watch on. Obviously, one, Rasmus Hojlund. That could still happen. It's an interest from both parties. There might be interest from other places in him as well. Obviously, you have that issue with the cost kind of being inflated and all that, and if he's worth that kind of money. And I still think there's a deal on that could be made for less than that, than those advertised prices, but it's a little bit of an unknown. The other name is still Gonzalo Ramos, who is highly admired by the club. They've had some discussions with Mendes this summer and previously, who basically deals with everything out of Portugal. And as I understand it, he might be available on some actually pretty favorable payment terms. So keep your eyes on that one, because it is one to watch all year, and one that I still think would be strongly considered for fitting Ten Hag's play style. And the price may be actually in quite a bit of a reasonable range. So we'll see. Keep an eye on that one, though, as well. And I think it's between him and Hojlund, the striker that we signed this summer, personally. So, moving into this final section on this is where the confusion is. I know there's a lot of reports on the takeover, and I've commented on those kind of things many times now in different places, in different areas and under different circumstances and all of that. As I still hear it, it's not resolved on the takeover front to the point where anything is settled. As I still understand, neither party has been informed of being selected as they're going to move ahead. They all have their own perspectives. I don't know. It is very, very conflicting, and there's a lot of reasons for this that I've explained in the past. It's not denying any kind of news that was out there, obviously from Bloomberg and places like that. For me, that shifted the dial, and my gut feels like it's going to be Qatar at this point. But there's also rumors, and I do mean credible rumors, of the Glazers essentially being deadlocked to the point of not selling. There's credible rumors to that. And figuring out, they've had a pretty I think I've mentioned this earlier, months ago. They were expecting to have a pretty healthy year financially, and they did. It's going to be a very healthy financial year. That doesn't mean that they can do the stadium and invest in the things that they need, but it does mean the club can keep going. And it does mean they could last another year. And it does mean they could keep the club and kick the can down the road if they don't get exactly what they want. And that's worrisome. That's worrisome. And the delays could, in fact, be because their financials were good enough that they're continuing to argue among each other. Could we just keep pushing this along because we can? The club has the money to function. We'll see. But there's a lot of confusions, and there's a lot of confusions on the spending. And again, as I mentioned, if you started to see an explosion of spending, then it would mean things have been resolved. But at this point in time, they wouldn't be continuing these talks with De Gea if that was the case. And they wouldn't be doing that. So hopefully we get answers. We could get answers at any moment. We could get answers on the budget. Obviously, if we end up getting an answer on Onana and can send an offer, it doesn't mean the takeover's done. It just means we got an answer on that. But we'll see. We will see. It's a good thing if we can get an answer. I really, 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 really hope that we can get an answer on this shortly because, we need it ASAP, okay? That's all I've got for now. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next one.